نار ما بعد. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Have you ever wondered that some people always get parking tickets? They always get parking tickets. Other people, you find that they always end up paying surcharges for not having paid their Virgin Media bill on time, or their council tax bill, or they always seem to have many financial mishaps. Have you ever come across those kind of people who they see the money drain away from between their fingers? They want to put Teflon between their fingers to stop it escaping, but the money somehow always manages to get through the fingers. Beyond the obvious reasons why this happens, due to personal inefficiency and generally not watching what they're doing, could there be possibly another reason? And the answer is yes, possibly there is another reason for this kind of financial mishaps. And one of those reasons is not giving enough sadaqah. That one of the ways of preserving your wealth and growing your wealth is about giving sadaqah. If you give sadaqah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you preserve your wealth and grow your wealth. Today, inshallah, I wanted to speak about some of the verses from Surah Al-Qalam. And inshallah, we will speak about the story of the people of the garden, which is known as Ashabul Jannah. The scholars of Islam, they have discussed the benefits of sadaqah. And why are we speaking about sadaqah? Some people may say that it's not Ramadan, and we're very far away from Ramadan. Why speak about sadaqah? We should know that sadaqah should be a way of life for the Muslim. It should not just be a seasonal activity. The ulama, they have spoken about the benefits of sadaqah. The benefits of sadaqah for the one who takes, then this is obvious. It does not require any explanation. As for the benefits for the giver, then these are many. Just to mention some of the benefits for giving sadaqah, from the benefits are, it purifies your heart of miserliness and stinginess. It strengthens your iman. It helps you cure your ill, your sick. Rasulullah, he said, Dawu mardakum bi sadaqah. That cure your sick by giving sadaqah. Also the sick, the poor people, they make dua for you. It's like music to my ears when you go to a Muslim country and you put the money in the palm of the poor person, and the poor person, he makes the dua, barakallahu feek. Because you should know that these poor people, in general, not as a continuous rule, but in general we can say the poor people, they are more humble and they are closer to Allah. And Allah is more likely to answer their supplication ahead of somebody who is arrogant and perhaps rich as well. So the story of the people of the garden is a really beautiful story. It's a story of a group of people who they thought that they could stop giving sadaqah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He showed them a punishment. Many of us, we suffer from charity fatigue. All the time someone's putting a box under our nose, or giving us a standing order form, or trying to extract some money out of us in some way or another. We get fed up. However, we should know that these are opportunities. Some of the Salaf, or the early Muslims, they would say that we love the poor people because they carry their reward. They carry our reward on their backs. They're like mules, they're like camels, they carry the reward on their backs. Similarly, these donation boxes, they carry your reward on the day of judgment. This is the way we should view this. And living in a rich Western country, many a time we're deprived of the opportunity of seeing the poor, or the opportunity of actually giving the money to the poor person ourselves. Simply, many of us, we do not give enough sadaqah. Many of us, we just do the fard. Just like somebody who only prays the fard salah. He doesn't pray any sunnahs or any nawafil. Some people, they only give the zakat. That's the only definition they have of sadaqah is zakat. When you ask them to give money for a cause, the first thing they ask is, that can I give my zakat? Yes, you can give your zakat, but how about giving some sadaqah on top of that? There's a very nice ayah in the Quran which says that at the time of death, the person, he will make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, let me go back. And Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُم مِّن قَبْلِ أَن يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتِ فَيَقُولَ رَبِّ لَوْلَا أَخَّرْتَنِي إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ فَأَصَّدَّقَ وَأَكُن مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. That when death comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, let me go back. Why do you want to go back to the dunya? And He will say, فَأَصَّدَّقَ وَأَكُن مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Because I wanted to give more sadaqah. So this is the reason why you want to come back to earth. You don't want to come back to earth to offer some more prayers, or to do some more fasting, or perhaps fit in an extra hajj. The reason why you want to come back to the earth is to give more sadaqah. So not giving sadaqah, it will be a source of regret for you and I on the day of judgment. There are many benefits of sadaqah. So now if we look at the story of the people of the garden. The story of the people of the garden is a story of a group of men who they were overtaken by their love of wealth. And we see how this love of wealth will be a regret on the Day of Judgment. And the story, it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran in the Meccan period. It was one of the early surahs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that look at Quraysh. We gave them so many blessings. Well, number one blessing, we sent you as a messenger to Quraysh in their own tongue. Number two blessing, we gave them children, we gave them wealth, we gave them camels. And after receiving all this, they denied this. So we punished them. We punished them with death in the Battle of Badr. And we punished them with drought and famine and so many other types of punishment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إِنَّا بَلَوْنَاهُمْ كَمَا بَلَوْنَا أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ, that we tested the Quraysh as we tested the people of Jannah. Jannah here not meaning paradise. Jannah here meaning a garden, like a garden in the street. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَسْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ, when the people of the garden, they made an oath to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that tomorrow we will harvest our crops. It is said that the people of the garden, they were a people after Isa alayhi salam, he was raised up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you like, they were the true Christians. They were real Christians. In fact, they were Muslims. They worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala direct. So these people, they were in Yemen. They lived in a place near Sana'a. So thousands of years ago. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us about these people, that their father, it was a family of people. The father, whenever he harvested his crops, then he would always give some sadaqah. And then eventually he died. And when he died, he left behind 3 sons who inherited his gardens. However, the 3 sons, they decided to change the financial policy. They decided that it was a waste of time giving money to the poor. And they decided that they would hoard the wealth themselves. And many of us, we can't really appreciate this story. However, if you look back to your grandparents, many of our grandparents, and this is a reality, maybe you want to forget this, many of our grandparents, they were farmers. Maybe now you have Windows 8 and you have Twitter and you wear a 3-piece suit and you know how to wear a tie. But many of our grandparents, they were farmers. And great-grandparents, even in the UK, maybe great-grandparents, maybe even some of them, they were farmers. So many of the parables, many of the examples in the Quran, they are regarding nature. Because people in the Muslim world, many of them, they still are farmers. So maybe you and I, we can't appreciate this kind of parable. However, many Muslims, when they hear this story, they will find that it strikes a chord. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that a Muslim farmer, whenever he harvests his crops, so whenever he cuts the apple off the tree, or wherever he collects his wheat or his barley, this is the day of harvest. This is the day of harvest, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says about the day of harvest with regard to zakat, because there is zakat on the crops. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, كُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ إِذَا أَثْمَرَ وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, that eat from the crops and give the zakat on the day of harvest. So the day you cut the apple off the tree, or the day you cut the crops off the tree, this is the day you must give the zakat. It's not like money or gold. Money or gold, you have to wait for a period of a year to pass, and then you pay the zakat. But with crops, it's different. You look at each individual group of trees, and whenever you take the fruit, on that day, you must give the zakat. So we see that this man, not only did he give his zakat, but he also gave additional charity whenever he harvested his crop. And there is an ayah in the Quran in Surah An-Nisa, which is very, very similar to this. And the ayah is in inheritance. That in the olden days, when somebody died, they would gather all the possessions together. And then the children, they would divide the inheritance amongst one another. And these days, nobody bothers with inheritance law. They try to block the women from inheriting the money and they give it to the men. And they use so many kinds of tricks to get around the inheritance laws in Surah An-Nisa. All of this is haram and widely practiced in our community. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us about inheritance, that when you distribute the inheritance amongst the inheritors, then what should you do? That perhaps the poor, they will come to the gathering where the inheritance is distributed. That money has a smell. You can smell the money. So you go to find out what's going on. And Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَإِذَا حَضَرَ الْقِسْمَةَ أُولُو الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ فَارْزُقُوهُمْ مِنْهُ وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. That when you distribute the money to the inheritors, and the poor, and the orphans, and other relatives who ordinarily, they wouldn't inherit the money they attend, then what should you do to them? Should you tell them to go away because you don't deserve to inherit the money? You're not from the family. No, rather you should give them some of the money. وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. And you should say something good to them. Nowadays in our countries, people have become desensitized to the poor. When they see a poor person, they may even insult him, adding insult to injury. Never mind give him some money, they may even insult him to his face. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that on the day of the inheritance, that when you divide the inheritance, then give some money to your other relatives and to the poor and to the orphans and say something nice to them. So similarly, this man, on the day he would cut his crops, on the day he would harvest his crops, not only would he take home the crops, but he would also give some of the crops to the poor. And this shows the great generosity of this man. So when this man died, the three sons, they became very, very greedy. They thought, our father, he owns a huge amount of crops. Now why should we give any to the poor? So their policy became a policy of accumulation. Now let's try to accumulate as much as we can. And they agreed a pact that let's deprive the poor of what our father used to do. However, one of them, he had a conscience. You always find in a group of people, somebody has a conscience. And he said that, no, this is wrong. Let's carry on doing as our father did. Let's carry on giving some sadaqah on the day of harvest, even though it's optional charity. So the story goes, إِذَا أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ. So that they took a pledge of allegiance. They took an oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that tomorrow, that when we harvest the crops, then we will go and do it. وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ. And they didn't say, Insha'Allah. They didn't say Insha'Allah because they had forgotten all about the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. And don't say that I'm going to do something tomorrow except saying Insha'Allah. We should always remember that Allah has power over everything. لَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. That no one knows what will happen tomorrow. You could be dead tomorrow. Your house could burn down tomorrow. Anything could happen tomorrow. So always say, Insha'Allah. So these young men, they were arrogant. They were filled with arrogance and they didn't say, Insha'Allah. What then happened was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at night, He sent a fiery wind. And some of the scholars of tafsir, they said, He sent an angel. فَطَافَ عَلَيْهَا طَائِفٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ. So then this wind, it came and it destroyed the crops. In the middle of the night, it burned the crops. فَأَصْبَحَتْ كَالصَّرِيمِ. Then it became like the dark night. All that remained to be seen was the charred remains of the trees. That's all that could be seen. So these young men, they were at home asleep, thinking that in the morning we're going to deprive the poor people of any sadaqah. And in the morning they woke up very, very excited. فَتَنَادَوْا مُصْبِحِينَ. And they called upon one another, encouraging one another, let's go and do it. أَنِ اغْدُوا عَلَىٰ حَرْثِكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَارِمِينَ. Let's go and harvest the crops if you're serious. And again, we don't really realize how great the day of harvest is, that in the Muslim countries, people, they sing nasheed. They sing nasheed because they're so happy when the day of harvest comes. All year they toil and they sweat. And quite literally they wait to see the day, they wait to see the fruits of their labors. So they really sweat and they're excited that when it's the day of the harvest, because this is the whole year's work, and they harvest it and they sell it and they eat from it as well. So they were very, very excited in the morning. فَانْطَلَقُوا وَهُمْ يَتَخَافَتُونَ. So then they went down to their fields, يَتَخَافَتُونَ. That they were lowering their voices. Not only did they wake up very, very early in the morning, perhaps before Salatul Fajr, to make sure that nobody could hear and see what they were about to do, but they lowered their voices, يَتَخَافَتُونَ أَلَّا يَدْخُلَنَّهَا الْيَوْمَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِسْكِينَ. Everyone know the word miskin. So they said that today we don't want any miskin, any poor person to watch us, such that we don't have a guilt trip. That when we gather the wealth and we cart it away, that nobody asks us anything about it. وَغَدَوْا عَلَى حَرْدٍ قَادِرِينَ. And they thought they were qadirin. They thought that they had all the power. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nobody can stop us getting our crops. So what happened next was that they arrived at their fields. And what did they see? They saw that everything was black. Everything had been burnt to bits. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهَا قَالُوا إِنَّا لَضَالُّونَ. That when they saw their crops, they said, we've gone the wrong way. They didn't recognize their own field. They thought this could not be our field. This must be the field of somebody else. بَلْ نَحْنُ مَحْرُومُونَ. And then they started to reflect. And then they recognized that it was their field. And then they realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had punished them, even though they had made every measure and every means to deprive the poor people because of their sheer greed. we see here as well another thing that many people, they disrespect the dead. That when they inherit the money, people, they do so many crazy things to take the inheritance. Many people, they override the direct wishes of the inheritor. Maybe the inheritor, he left behind a will, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the children come along and they decide they know better, so they override the will. This is not allowed unless the will, of course, involves sin. So from kindness to the parents is to obey the will, to listen to the will and not to override it. And then when they saw this, قَالَ أَوْسَطُهُمْ أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ لَوْلَا تُسَبِّحُونَ. And the one who had a conscience, if you remember the brothers, the 3 brothers, one of them, he was closest to the father, because many manners are inherited as well. Many manners, they pass through the blood. If the father and mother, they are soft, then the children, they are soft. It's not only physical appearance, it's also akhlaq. Many of them, they are inherited from father to son. So the middle one, he was closest to his father in appearance perhaps, and also in manners. And he started to blame the others. لَوْلَا تُسَبِّحُونَ. Now why did you not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why did you not make the tasbih? If you had done this, then Allah, He would have preserved our wealth. And then they made tawbah. قَالُوا سُبْحَانَ رَبِّنَا إِنَّا كُنَّا ظَالِمِينَ. Then they said, Ya Allah, we have made a mistake, that we have deprived the poor of this sadaqah. So they sort of said, Insha'Allah. What happened next was the usual blame game began. فَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَلَاوَمُونَ. And then they all started to blame one another, that this is my fault, this is your fault. So this is what they started to do. And this is a natural human trait, that when things go wrong, then the blame kicks in and everyone starts blaming everybody else. However, we as Muslims, we should not get caught up in this, that when things go wrong, we should say, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. That this is what Allah has decreed. This is what was meant to happen, that the whole of mankind, if they had come together, then this could never have been stopped. When things go wrong, then we need to move out of that dip. We need to move out of the problem into action. We need to take affirmative action and move away from this. So many brothers and sisters we meet, they're depressed because their belief in qadr is weak. We should know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has decreed for us in our lives things. Some things they are good, other things they are extremely painful. And some of these extremely painful things, when we believe in qadr, it makes us strong. It makes us strong. This was meant to happen. Okay, let's forget about it. Let's learn lessons and let's move on. So if only we believed in qadr, if only we had strong iman in qadr, this would help us move on from problems in our life. So don't be sad, be happy, and know that this is decreed and this has come to pass. Also we see here that the brothers, that when they made tawbah, then they focused on the most important parts of tawbah, turning back to Allah. The 3 pillars of tawbah. Number 1, leave the sin. Number 2, resolve never to do it again. And number 3, feel regret. And the ulama, they said that feeling the regret, this is the most important of the 3 pillars of tawbah. So they felt genuine regret. And how do we know they felt regret? We know it from the next ayah in the Quran. عَسَى رَبُّنَا أَيُبْدِلَنَا خَيْرًا مِنْهَا إِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا رَاغِبُونَ. They said, we hope that Allah, He will give us better. That yes, we made a mistake, that Allah, He punished us, and we hope that Allah, He will give us better and He will replace it. وَإِنَّا لَرَاغِبُونَ وَإِنَّا رَاغِبُونَ. So then they made dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us at the end of the story of the people of the garden, كَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابُ وَلَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. That this is a punishment for them in the dunya, and the punishment in the akhirah, in the hereafter, is even greater if only they knew. Another important point, brothers and sisters, is that just by thinking of an evil deed, I read some research somewhere, they say about 10,000 thoughts pass through your mind every single day. Many of those thoughts, they may be evil. You see a woman in the street, you see this, you see that. Many thoughts in your mind. The mind's always working, it never falls asleep. The mind's always thinking about something. So many thoughts pass through your mind. Are you sinful for these thoughts? And the answer is no. You are not sinful for those thoughts unless you take action. So it's quite apparent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished these 3 young men because they took action, that they had set the alarm clock early to wake up early in the morning, and they had lowered their voices to try to deprive the poor. In fact, they had actually started to implement their plan to deprive the poor of their wealth. We should have a special love for poor people. And when you go on Hajj or Umrah, or when you go to Pakistan or India or wherever you go, then you should spend some time with the poor people. These are the VIPs, the very important people, very Islamic people. These are the VIPs. And in the hadith in Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, هَلْ تُنْصَرُونَ وَتُرْزَقُونَ إِلَّا بِدُعَفَائِكُمْ. That your victory and your provision, they are only as a result of the dua of your weak. So we should know that these people, they have a special place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of the Quraysh, they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they said, let's do a deal. That if you abandon these poor people, then we're with you. But we don't want to join a religion which equates us with the poor. That we are the elite of Quraysh, now you want us to stand on the same platform as Bilal and other poor people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then revealed the ayah in Surah Al-Kahf, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. That be patient. This is a command to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that be patient with those people who make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the morning and in the evening. وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. And don't turn your eyes away from them. Meaning have a love for poor people. Always try to be with the poor. So in the first khutbah, brothers and sisters, we have seen that giving sadaqah is part and parcel of being a Muslim. It's not a Ramadan activity. It's not something you just do once in the year. It's something you should try to do every single day, and the benefits there are many. And if you don't give sadaqah, then maybe the next time you got a parking ticket, maybe this is the reason. Instead of giving it to the poor, you gave it to Bradford Council. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam nabina Muhammad. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulil Kareem amma ba'd. There is a beautiful hadith in the collection of Imam Muslim, which is very similar to the story in Surah Al-Qalam. And the story is in Sahih Muslim. And the hadith goes that once a man in a time gone by, he saw a great cloud above his head. And he heard a voice calling from the heavens, that, "O cloud, go and water the garden of such and such a person." So the man wondered, that who is this person? He heard the name, but he did not know the person. And then suddenly he saw the cloud moving in a direction. So he thought to himself, I want to know where this cloud is going. So he followed the cloud, and he saw the rain-laden cloud discharge itself in a valley. And then he saw the water go into a stream and go to a field. So the man ran after the water, wanting to see that what was the secret behind this voice, and why did the cloud move in that direction. When he arrived to the field, he found that the field had been irrigated by this water that had originally come from this cloud. And then he saw a farmer in the field. He asked the farmer that, "Who are you?" And the farmer said, "I am such and such a person." And he mentioned the name which the man had heard from the voice in the sky. He said to him that, "I heard your voice and I saw the cloud come to you. That what have you done that made you deserving of this divine favor?" He said that every time I harvest my crops, I always give 1/3 away. Never mind 2.5%, he gives 33% away. And then 1/3 I keep for my family, and 1/3 I reinvest. And this was his secret. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed him even more in his money, because he gave away so much of his money. This is similar to the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, that wealth is never decreased by giving. This is like a secret of giving money. And this hadith also shows us that there's no shame in having some money, and there's no shame in good financial planning, in investing some of the money. This man, he invested 1/3, and he ate 1/3, and he gave away 1/3. So it's giving money is all part of a balanced, healthy financial outlook, that we need to learn to give. We need to learn to give until giving becomes natural. And the Prophet ﷺ said, one of the 7 who will be shaded on Yawm al-Qiyamah, under the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is one whose right hand gives and his left hand doesn't know his right hand is giving. It becomes some kind of automated action, like driving an automatic car. The gears, they just change automatically. How many people, they have lost their money because they never gave the zakat? How many Muslims, they never give the zakat? They don't do a calculation, they just give it. And they may have tens of thousands in their bank accounts. I wanted to finish the khutbah by giving some top tips about sadaqah. Number 1, make it a regular habit. Why not have a box at home called sadaqah? Because many a time we forget about sadaqah, and then whenever you look through your wallet, all loose change goes in the box. There is a hadith from a person called Abu Khair. Abu Khair means the father of good, and he liked good things. And he heard from his teacher, who heard from the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, that the charity you give, it will shade you on the day of judgment until the day of judgment is complete. So when he heard this, he vowed that every single day I will give sadaqah, every single day. One day he went home and he didn't find anything. All he found in his house was an onion. So he went around with this onion looking for someone to give the onion to, and eventually he found someone and he gave him an onion. So you can give anything in sadaqah. It doesn't have to be bullion bars. It can be something very, very simple you can give in sadaqah. Many people, they have time in the week to buy a national lottery ticket. I don't remember how much it is anymore. But many people, they have time to buy national lottery tickets. Why not give that £1 or £2 or however much it is to sadaqah? By the way, national lottery is haram. I don't play it. Also, try to focus your intention. That is not important, the actual amount of money you give. Make your intention. The intention is like a laser beam. You focus all your efforts, and that sadaqah you gave of £1 could be worth thousands of pounds. And when you put the £1 in the bucket, then don't think about the £1 as nothing. Rather, move your heart that I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I'm hoping that one day I will see this £1 on the day of judgment. So do this for the sake of Allah. Teach your children. I read some research that rich people, generally speaking, many of them, their parents taught them the secrets of good financial management. So one of the secrets of good financial management is giving your money away. I read an article about Bill Gates. They have the Bill Gates Foundation, and he has made, of course this does not benefit him in the hereafter because he's not a Muslim. However, what he's doing is noble, that he's going to give away his billions. And he's going to leave his children with only a small amount of money. So people, they feel good. Whenever you give money away, you always feel good. You always feel good. Well, it's hard, but once you've done it, you feel really happy when you help somebody. Try to give charities to other than countries where you come from. Many people, they only give to Pakistan, or they only give to relatives. Yes, the relatives, they have more rights than other people. But try to train yourself that you're doing it for the sake of Allah. You'll give money to Congo, you give money to Central African Republic instead of Pakistan 1 year. So try to train yourself to give sadaqah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, not based along tribal lines or along family lines on some occasions. Try to take opportunity of giving the sadaqah in the hand of the person. Whenever you go on Hajj or Umrah or any other Muslim country, try to give it to the hand of the person, and really you feel really good. Another important point is the point of Sadaqah Jariyah. That all the ulama, they are agreed that if one of your parents has died, or both of your parents, they have died, which could be the case for many people here, then you can still help them. All of the ulama, they agree that you can still set up a Sadaqah Jariyah. You can set up a Sadaqah Jariyah, meaning it's like a charity which goes on, maybe digging a well, or sponsoring an orphan. You can do something for your family members, and some of the ulama, they said this even reduces the punishment in the grave by doing this kind of thing. So think about your parents, and why not set up a Sadaqah Jariyah? You get reward for this, and you also help your parents, and it all comes down to the intention. Here, in conclusion, we say at the end of this short khutbah about Sadaqah, and we say that wealth is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all graves I've ever seen, below ground level, they all look the same. Okay, there's nothing such as a 5-star grave. So all graves, they look the same, and as far as I know, there's no money in anyone's grave. Unless Pharaoh perhaps is an exception. But generally speaking, there is no money in anyone's grave. So this money will not go with you. So give away some of your money. Don't leave your inheritors poor. Rasulullah said it's preferable to leave your inheritors rich than leave them poor. So leave your inheritors with money, but at the same time give away some of this money while you can, because you will not have a chance to give it away once you have died. Also, we see in this story about the people of paradise, or the people of the garden rather, that they realized the error of their ways, that they changed. And people, they can change. Don't write people off. That people, sometime in their life, they do make tawbah, and they realize that they made a mistake, and they may repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, we see in this story that sometimes it takes a calamity to change your life. That people, sometimes they don't pull themselves together until a disaster happens in your life. So many times, a problem in your life is a hidden blessing. It means you need to change direction, and one of the changes in direction could be giving more sadaqah. In conclusion, we say that sadaqah is a proof of your Iman. That small amounts of sadaqah, they can bring great reward in this dunya and in the akhirah, spiritual and material. And it protects one from the hellfire and increases barakah in your wealth. Don't just confine sadaqah to zakat and zakat al-fitr and Ramadan. And finally, I leave you with a hadith which is found in Bukhari and Muslim, where the Prophet ﷺ said that every day angels descend from the heavens and they make the dua. And when they find someone who is not giving any of his money away, they say, Allahumma a'ti munfiqan khalafa. That, Ya Allah, the one who gives, give him more. And then when they find someone who never gives anything, they always wait for somebody else to pay for the dinner. Everyone goes to dinner, always they wait for somebody else to give. Well, they always wait for somebody else to give the sadaqah. Allahumma a'ti mumsikan talafa. That, Ya Allah, give the one who withheld, destroy his wealth. So every day angels, they descend, and they're making this dua, depending on whether you are giving. So make sure you are one of those who gives. You don't need to be rich to give. Even 1 pence, with a good intention is better than £1 million with no intention. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those people who are the mutasaddiqat, those people who give. Because this is part and parcel of being a good Muslim, is parting with your money. And by the way, there's no special collection at the door. I'm not doing this for any reason other than to mention the fact that it's part and parcel of being a Muslim is parting with your wealth. So let's part with our wealth before it comes to the time when we cannot part with our wealth anymore.